He was not a famous man, not a man whose name would be remembered in books or carved into stone. He lived a life, quiet, ordinary, human, the kind of life that drifts gently into the world and drifts gently away again. This is his story, the story of a man no one knew. He was born in a small house with thin walls. On cold mornings, he could see his breath in the air. On warm evenings, the window was left open, and the sound of crickets drifted in. The floorboards of the house creaked beneath every step. The kitchen smelled of bread baking, of wood smoke curling up from the stove. He had little of his own, a pair of worn shoes, a patched shirt. But he had curiosity. He spent hours watching clouds move across the sky, changing shape, breaking apart, forming again. Sometimes he listened to the rain tapping against the roof, steady and calming. Other times he lay awake at night, hearing the distant call of an owl or the faint voices of neighbors drifting through the walls. He was just a boy, small, unnoticed, but the world was wide before him. As he grew older, he began to work. He carried crates, swept floors, bent his back to small jobs that tired his hands. The smell of dust clung to him. The rough feel of wood left splinters in his palms. He dreamed of more, though he did not know what more meant. Perhaps a bigger house, perhaps a smoother life, perhaps simply the chance to be seen. There were small joys, the laughter of friends in the evening air, the sweetness of fruit in summertime, juice running down his fingers, the quiet pride of saving a single coin in his pocket. And there were quiet disappointments too, opportunities that passed him by, days when his work went unnoticed, nights when he lay awake, wondering if he would ever be more than ordinary. In time, he built a life for himself. He found work that steadied him, enough to pay his rent, enough to keep bread on the table. His hands, once soft, became calloused. His shoulders grew broad, then weary. He walked the same streets each morning. Streets lined with shop windows, the smell of coffee drifting from open doors. Sometimes he stopped to greet a neighbor. Sometimes he passed silently, lost in thought. Years slipped past, as years do. He laughed with friends. He argued. He regretted. He forgave. He loved. He lost. He loved again. Seasons turned like pages. Summer heat, cicadas singing in the trees. Autumn leaves crunching beneath his boots. Winter winds rattling the windows. Spring rain washing the streets clean again. Through it all, he carried on. An ordinary man moving through an ordinary life. By middle age, his hair had begun to grey. Lines had deepened across his face, each one a trace of time, a record of laughter, of worry, of years lived. The energy of youth had softened into something quieter. He no longer dreamed of greatness. Instead, he dreamed of peace. He found comfort in small things. The sound of birds in the morning chirping at his window. The warmth of sunlight across his hands as he sat in a chair by the door. The smell of rain carried on a cool breeze through the open window. Sometimes he remembered the boy he once was, staring at clouds, imagining what lay ahead. And he wondered if that boy would be proud or disappointed or simply at peace. In old age, he lived alone in a small room at the top of a narrow staircase. The walls were faded. The furniture was worn smooth from years of use. But the chair by the window was his, and it fit him perfectly. He spent his days watching the world outside. Children running along the street, their voices light and quick. Neighbors walking by, their footsteps echoing softly in the evening air. The wind shaking the branches of the trees. The soft glow of lamplight appearing one by one as night settled in. His body grew slower, his steps careful, his breath heavier, but his mind was still filled with memories of childhood mornings, of youthful ambitions, of the long road he had walked. No one beyond his street knew his name. No books would mention him, but his life had been his own, and that, he thought, was enough. One evening, as rain tapped gently against the window, he leaned back in his chair. The air smelled of wet earth, fresh and clean. The sound of the rain was steady, like a lullaby. His eyes grew heavy, his breath slowed, and without struggle, without noise, he drifted quietly into sleep. By morning, he was gone, not with drama, not with notice, but with stillness. As softly as he had lived, he left the world. And so ends the life of an unknown man. A life not written in history, not remembered by crowds, but lived fully, gently, in its own way. Now let his story fade into silence. Let the rhythm of your own breath steady, like rain on a roof. Let your body sink into stillness. There is nothing more to do tonight. Nothing to chase. Nothing to hold. Only rest. Only calm. Only sleep. Good night.